I was trying to keep it general so that we didn't get into the trap of like we kind of removed emotions a little bit, but it's a little bit difficult to talk about it when you do talk about it generally. So how about we just stick to human beings? So for example, think about local control would be an individual human being coming up, making their own decisions, performing their own actions. Global control in terms of human beings would be someone else dictating how someone acts and what they do. Is that fair? You agree with that?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, when I'm saying that in global control, or the difference between local and global here would be how much understanding do you have about the individual human being that he's having to perform the actions? Do you understand that person's strengths? Do you understand that person's weaknesses? Do you understand the limitations of what that person is capable of doing? Do you understand or even care about what the desires and wants of that human being are? So a really good example for this, ask me to paint a photorealistic landscape. Good luck. Like, do you want a good outcome or not? You're probably going about it the wrong way if you're going to ask me to do that. So yeah, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's something I actually didn't think about is, so what you're taking into account is the amount of knowledge each thing has about the other, I guess. So it's a really good point because I guess some global decisions are made because the local, where the thing being controlled is, it doesn't have the knowledge in order to possibly make its own decision at that point. So you think about a kid. A kid's always controlled by its parent, yeah? And so in the early stages, the kid is probably at great risk to harm itself. So what you do is, because you have that knowledge and the kid doesn't, you actually help make decisions for the kid to keep it safe. And so that kid doesn't actually have input into that because it's not at a competent level to do so. And I guess vice versa. I think the other thing that you were saying, so that's on that side of having that sort of self-control or that local control. And then the vice versa was also important and true, is that if you're making global decisions, if you are the parent in that situation, are you taking the person that you're trying to control into account? All their desires, wants, are you respecting they're an individual human, or are you sort of making a mockery of them, I guess? Not a mockery, but maybe you're underestimating their capabilities or something along those lines. So, yeah, I think that's actually something I hadn't thought about that's very important, in particularly when we're talking about humans or living things, I guess.
I think the parent-child relationship is a great example just to look at in terms of, you want to start off with kind of global control. So the parent has pretty much complete decision-making over the child. But then as the child grows, it kind of goes like from global to local. You want to give more and more decision-making, more and more control to the child. And so, yeah, understanding that balance. And this is where it's important when you're talking about global, but also from local perspective. Let's look at the global perspective first. So the parent, you want them to understand enough about the child. Like, they could be trying to get the child to do something that the child isn't capable of doing. And so that's kind of a bad situation. And that's when you want to give more control to the child, more localized control there. So like, you could ask them, do you want to, go and play on the playgrounds? Do you want to go down the slide or whatever? Because the child may not be comfortable with that. But if you just tell the child, go down the slide, go on the swings, go do this, you kind of, it depends what your outcome is. If your outcome is just to control the child, if your desire is just to control the child and get them away from you and get them distracted, whatever, that may work. But if your desire is to bring happiness to the child, or, help them grow, learn and develop, then you need to take these things into consideration.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's this, I guess it's also like that balance of free will versus the setting of expectations, or that's probably the lack of a better word, but sort of like, I guess what you're trying to do is set expectations for the child so the child understands how to maybe keep itself safe or to respect others and all the rest of it, but then having the free will to make the decisions to get to that, those, I guess, expectations to certain points. I mean, expectations is even hard because, how do you actually keep free will and then set of expectations? That's a tricky one. And I guess we all are part of that bit of mess of how do we live with each other. So as that kid grows up, The parent's going to take less control over the kid and give them more responsibilities and more freedoms. But then that kid goes into the world itself and a bigger social structure than just their family. And then they have to sort of integrate into that, this balance of having enough free will to be able to follow their desires, but then not so much that their free will can then impact other people's free wills around them, I guess. So it's this agreement about expectations, I guess, is where some of that global sort of governing is important, I guess.
I hope that as the child grows up, the parent is giving them more freedom, more control. But sometimes we don't see it. And that comes down to, again, what is the expectations? What is the desire of the two parties here? What is the desire of the adult? Is the desire to have this being that they control, that they can do with what they want? Or is the desire to bring up this individual free agent that can go out and act around the world based on their own desires and wants and opinions? And so, yeah, that's where it comes to when we talk about at a broader scale in terms of like society, communities, civilization. What is it we're trying to achieve? Is it what some individual or some small group of people want to achieve, or is it what each individual wants themselves, their wants, their desires?